What's up, fam? Extraordinary Life with Elijah, and you're watching this video on Sunday, April 26th, 2026 at 10:50 a.m. MST. And this week, Michael is my extra, and I am the ordinary. Michael, I enjoy the gentle humility with which you lead the body, that you're always so honest to share with us your struggles, your areas of growth in the Lord, and to humble yourself before the Lord. And as a result, the Lord lifts you up to have a place of significance and power in imparting the person of Jesus to us through the grace that you receive in those areas that need to be upheld by the power of grace. Thank God for your humble leadership and bless you in Jesus' name. Friends, clear back, I believe it was in 2020, there was a group called 406 United that was writing songs as a community and producing a record. And the church gathered together, not just C3, but the whole church of the Gallatin Valley gathered together to raise support to record the songs that had been written through that process as a result of 406 United. Michael challenged the entire body to pray and ask the Lord what each of us would give by way of a generous gift to support what the Lord was doing. And in his challenge, said that he was believing God to bring in $15,000 for the recording. Everyone pressed into that charge. Everyone gave very generously, and they had to postpone announcing the number by an entire week in order to count up all of the money that came in. And then a number of people said, hey, you didn't tell us how to give by check. There's still people giving by check. And so they didn't want to short those people from being involved. So they let it ride for one whole extra week. And I remember in the service where they finally announced the number, everybody was on the edge of their seats waiting for the number to be announced. And when it was announced, it was over $16,000. Now, I can't remember the exact number, but I know that it was over 16,000. Everybody lost their minds, jumping and yelling and screaming and clapping. And Michael encouraged the entire body that he was so proud of their generous hearts and to press in with faithfulness to what God was doing and to help support it. Now, right on the heels of him telling us the number and everybody yelling and screaming and rejoicing and celebrating, he had us all sit down and said, I have something now to tell you. I have to confess something to you. When we pressed in to take this offering, I knew that God had spoke to me to speak out that there was going to be 17,000 that came in, but I shrank back because of fear and I said 15,000 instead. Fam, Michael told us that when the Lord said, speak 17,000, that the number was so big that he didn't know how that was possible, that he dialed it back to something that was a little more akin to his faith and said, I'm believing God for 15,000, but he knew that God had said 17. Now, out of that, he told us that he didn't want to be one who shrank back from what the Lord told him to say, and that he wanted to speak the full 17,000 of the Lord. I was so encouraged by his humility and his faith. Aside from him telling us that and confessing that from the secret place of his heart before God, none of us would have ever guessed that. We celebrated his bold faith in saying 15,000, but he knew that he was not pressing in for the fullness of everything that God had for us as a fam. Now, Michael, I'm so encouraged by what you did because now your faith and your humility is spurring me on to speak the full 17,000 of the Lord. The very day that I recorded my first and last episode on February 14th, 2020, so many dates to remember throughout the creation of these videos. I realized I watched a video a while back and I said that my dad's birthday was on July 12th. It's not July 12th, it's January 12th. Way too many days to try to keep straight in your head. But on the very first and last video that I recorded in the crawl space on February 14th, 2020, God spoke to me as I was setting up all of my equipment and said the success of Extraordinary Life with Elijah will be marked by the number 100 million. Fam, until now, here in the recording of this video, and now in the posting of it to you here on April 26th, 2026, the only other person that I've ever talked to about that number is my father, Roger, that in my 4th episode that I recorded, all for my father, I sent my video to my dad, and then after he had watched it, I checked in with him to see what he thought of the video. And I talked with him about what Extraordinary Life with Elijah was and a lot of the things that God had for me, and said, Dad, the Lord has spoken that the success of Extraordinary Life with Elijah will be marked by the number 100 million. I remember my dad asking me, Elijah, what does that number relate to? Has the Lord spoken what that will be? And I told him, I don't know, Dad. I just know that he spoke 100 million. Now, as I've stewarded that forward with the Lord in prayer and continued to ask God, bring in the fullness of the 100 million, I've resisted speaking it to anyone or talking to anyone about it, because that really hits my faith hard. As I've prayed with him about it, I've asked, what does the 100 million relate to? Is it 100 million subscribers? Is it 100 million views on all my videos? Is it 100 million thumbs down buttons on all of my videos combined? Is it 100 million minutes of watch time? Is it 100 million souls saved as a direct result of these videos? Or is it $100 million in provision that God is going to release to me in order to come to all the parts of the body around the world to impart some spiritual gift? Honestly, I have no idea. And I've talked about each one with God and said, God, well, what if it's this one? That would be amazing. Or what if it's this one? That would be amazing too. And as of right now, I'm asking God for all of them. 100 million subscribers, 100 million views, 100 million thumbs down buttons, 100 million souls added to our family, and $100 million of provision to come and to minister to the fullness of the body in the earth, to do good to everyone in the earth. Fam, as a result of the impartation that came to me through Michael's good leadership of me, that he served to please our Father's heart through the exercise of his gifts to impart grace to me so that I could know my Father more, that he spoke out, that he regretted not speaking the full 17,000 of the Lord, that his faith was falling down and that he was looking to what was comfortable for him and what felt good to him and was attainable for him. And so he shrank back, that he repented of that he humbled himself before his family and said, no, press in to the full 17,000 of the Lord. That's why I want to press in here with you, fam, and to honor Michael's grace imparted to me by speaking the full 17,000 of the Lord and not shrinking back from what the Lord told me during my first episode. The success of Extraordinary Life with Elijah will be marked by the number 100 million. Fam, my encouragement to you is that whatever the Lord gives you to speak, whatever it is that the Lord gives you to do, whatever it is the Lord asks of you, to press into it with obedience, that no freshly spoken word of God will ever come to you that does not contain within it the power to perform itself. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with my ability. It has everything to do with God's fulfillment of his word in my life, in your life. And when he gives us things to do by faith, it is then up to us, it is requisite upon us to exercise the faith that he has given us and to speak the bold word that he has placed in our mouth and in our heart. Friends, if there are areas in your life that you know that God has called you to, but that you have shrank back due to fear, to unbelief, or to the fact that your mind can't wrap itself around how God's going to accomplish that, my encouragement to you out of the grace that I received from Michael is to not shrink back from what the Lord has spoken. As Michael ended his time with us in that service, that he celebrated that even though he had shrunk back from the number that God had given him and said 15,000, that in God's goodness and his gracefulness, that he superseded the number that Michael had spoken. God had brought in $16,000 plus of support when Michael had said 15,000. That it's a credit, he said, to God's gracefulness, his goodness, and his gentleness with us. But then he said, what if I had been faithful and said 17,000? His faith declaration was that not only would have God have met the 17,000, but he would have exceeded that as well. Friends, out of that testimony from my leader, out of that grace imparted to me, and a leader humbling himself and demonstrating what faithfulness before the Lord looks like, I don't want to shrink back from the number that God has given me. I don't want to say 99,999,999. Neither do I want to say 100,000,001. I want to speak exactly what God has told me to say, and then allow God to demonstrate his faithfulness through the word that he gave me to speak. If you subscribe to what I'm doing, then hit the button, hit it, and then get it. Hit the bell as well so you get notified with the new content. And if you loved this video, you didn't just like it, hit the thumbs down button. I pray blessings on our lives together. I love you guys lots, and I will see you in the next video, which starts now. I love that God, as I was setting up the studio, he pushed me towards setting up for this chair, that all the time that I spent with him in my crawl space, and that my only regret was that I hadn't spent more time with him, that this chair has been pervaded by hours and days and years of prayer before the Lord. My brother, in his chair that he sat in, again, I think it was the 6th episode that I recorded of him spending time in the similar chair and seeking the Lord, that just pervaded with resources of faith and provision and strength and joy. Oh, I don't want to shrink back from anything that the Lord has given me to do, such that when I give an account of the resources, of the trust that he's given me to invest through faithfulness and joy, that my accountability to him would be equal to the responsibility that he knows that I can exercise by the faith that I have. Yes. What's up, fam? Extraordinary Life with Elijah. And this week, Bowden Kendrick is my extra, and I am the ordinary.